Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome. My name is Bettina Lawton. I'm your host tonight for Women Talk Business, a program endorsed by the Executive Women's Roundtable in Tysons Corner, Virginia. And tonight we are very happy to have as our guest Dawn McCoy, who is the founder, president, and CEO of Flourish Leadership Group, which is an organization that does leadership development and communications. So welcome, Dawn.
Thank you, Bettina.
We're glad to have you. Now, Dawn has a book, and I'm going to show you the book right now so that everybody can see it, and it is called Leadership Building Blocks. And for most of the show, we're going to be talking about the book, but you also have another, a DVD or a CD that came out called Community Engagement, Effective Community Engagement, which is sort of a political end of that as well. Dawn ran in 2002 for the, essentially the school board in a grassroots campaign. Was your first political campaign, grassroots, majority white district for the Sacramento City Unified School District, which is one of the 50 largest in the United States. 9 candidates, 3 seats, first-time candidate, and you won.
That's right.
And we want to talk about how you did that. Now, prior to that, you had spent 15 years as an executive with nonprofits and also put in some time at Capitol Hill. So you had some background, at least in politics. You have a BS in psychology from Howard University, a master's in public policy from Georgetown. And we're here to really talk to you about leadership, developing yourself as a leader. How do you actually go about doing that? We want to talk about political campaigns, how you get into one, how do you do one successfully, because obviously you did. And then you stepped away, which is pretty remarkable. Since most people who have a career in politics, they start out and they stay and they stay and they stay. And you decided that you weren't going to do that. And so we're going to talk about that as well. So let's get started. We've got the first big question that I always have when I see a new book on leadership, which is, okay, I've only read about 15,000 so far. So why should somebody, even though they may be really interested in leadership, take the time to read the building leadership blocks?
Mm-hmm. Well, what this book does is it doesn't just talk about leadership in a concept form, but what it does is take the reader through practical steps. I not only include a conversational style, but also allow people to have self-assessments. I walk them through exercises and then give them the tools at the end of each chapter. Throughout, there are icons to help people understand a little bit more about the concepts. Mm-hmm. And then at the very back of the book, I have a template to be able to make sure people can really work through an action plan to leadership and not just read about it.
Okay, well that does seem to be a difference, because most of the books that I've seen, they give you some great ideas, they tell you some great things, but at the end, you may not be any further along than you were when you started the book. Mm-hmm. So we have, so that everyone knows, we have 7 leadership building blocks that we're going to talk about. The first is vision, balancing act, courageous focus, dynamic creativity, everything is global, fortitude, and then the last one is infinite possibilities and commitment to legacy, which I had the most difficult time grasping, and I read it through in the book to make sure I could kind of get that. But before we get to those, because those are really, as I understand it, the product of your experience on the school board.
Right. Right.
So let's talk about your decision to run for political office, because you weren't a politician. You were an executive in a nonprofit. You were doing advocacy work, but this was your first election. How did you get to saying, okay, I'm going to do this?
Absolutely. It was an exciting time to be part of the political process. Like you said, I was involved already with advocacy work, and so that's what it was. It was about advocating for libraries and education and for the children of the school district, and making sure that I could do more in an elected position, in a leadership position. And so the decision to run was about just simply saying, you know, what can I do? How can I get involved? How can I make myself available with my policy background, years of leadership already, and being able to really build coalitions? And so it was an exciting time to say, let me jump in and do what I can with the skills I have.
Well, a lot of people look and say there's a need in the community, and boy, I'd really like to do that. But what kind of skills were needed, because not everyone can do that. And certainly not everybody can do it the first time or even the second time successfully. So what kind of skills did you need to jump in and have an actual grassroots campaign and get it going?
Absolutely. It is really about having some key organizational skills, time management, a sense of really setting forth a plan, as I talk about having a vision, making sure that you don't just sort of say, I'm going to do this, and not have clear steps to do it. The second is really having people skills and being able to communicate and have an articulate conversation, to be able to communicate effectively on paper, but to bring people to your perspective, the persuasive skill. And finally, I think, and most important, is about how to really look at it in a bigger picture, as it being a continuum. You are one of many leaders in a community, and being able to say, how do you really bridge all of those different perspectives together to be effective? And so one of the things I found challenging, of course, was the fundraising. I had done fundraising in community efforts and on other local political campaigns, but never for myself. And so being able to develop that skill of dialing for dollars and being able to get on and ask people for help, ask people for resources, was something I developed over that time and really mobilized to actually develop quite an underdog campaign with a nice bit of resource there.
Now, did you just turn to, in terms of the fundraising, in terms of the people to help you, was there because there were 9 candidates for this thing, so was there like an endorsement you got, so that there was a Democrat or a Republican committee backing you up when she said you were going to run? Or was this you at your kitchen table with, you know, your mom, your best friend, and your dog? I mean, what was that?
Well, it was twofold, actually. What made it so effective in my case was, one, that I did have the backing of the party, and that the second part of what I did is had all of the key leaders in the community. The current school board endorsed me in total. The city council endorsed me in total. The local leadership at the higher levels at assembly, in the legislature, and in the Congress. And so having that sort of support behind me, along with a number of key community organizations, really helped leverage and mobilize the effort I needed to really build the grassroots. The second part is what you mentioned about the grassroots of my neighbors and those community people, everyday people all around, who may not have been someone to say, hey, you've got our big endorsement, but we can lend you the support of our friends. And that's where it really became important, Bettina, to have coffees, teas, picnics to help raise those resources.
Wow. Well, that's the part that I think a lot of people don't understand, because it sounds like you had the reputation, you had all these endorsements, you had all of this, but the people who are doing the endorsing, or the entities, are not the ones who are going to be out knocking on doors for you.
That's right.
And you need that grassroots kind of level and people doing it. Now, did you have immediate folks who were able to say, I will go and run your office for you, or I know how to design campaign literature, or I know how to, how does that all work? How did you get all that put together?
And it really is word of mouth. By being involved in any community effort, the work that I have done over the years has been asking, just simply saying, hey, I need someone who can do graphics, graphic design. I need to find someone who can help with a mobilized effort of looking at how we can precinct walk, and making sure to look at what do we need to do to divide up the task of walking a neighborhood. And so really tapping shoulders of folks in the party in particular, but also making sure that I was utilizing community leaders and saying to the church groups, the faith-based organizations, the community leaders, and saying, hey, I need your help, and making sure to really get those people in place. So it was a threefold process, really, of the formal asking, the informal process of asking, and then really just my own creativity of saying, you know, my girlfriends were great with living room parties, you know, doing the envelope stuffing, or even just in the case of someone saying, I can't be there, but I can help make phone calls for you. And so being able to do that last minute GOTV effort in getting out and really mobilizing. So very creative, if you will, in trying to canvas different ways to reach out.
Okay, and for the people who may be watching and don't know, GOTV is get out the vote, which is the bottom line. It doesn't matter how well you do everything else, if at that last day you don't get that vote out,
that's right,
you're not going to be in office.
That's right.
That much I do know. And I know we, and those of us who are out watching and who live in Fairfax County know we have huge elections coming up in Virginia this year, and particularly the Fairfax County School Board, where a good number of folks are not running for re-election. So your experience in deciding to run, and particularly in Sacramento, you didn't have separate districts. You ran citywide. That's right. Basically.
Yes.
So it's like our at-large positions up here.
The same thing.
That, I would think, would just have to be enormously tough to run with that many people and having to touch that many folks. I mean, what kind of time commitment is it to actually do that? Because you had a full-time job.
Oh, absolutely. It's an extraordinary time commitment. First, I went to my employer and said, I need some time.
Now, there's a step. You didn't tell us about that step, but that's a key
that
step.
Is key.
You need to have that, yes.
To get the sign-off, really, before you really jump in, to get that support from your family, to get that support from your employer. In my case, what it meant doing was really sitting and saying to myself, how was I going to go about getting all of these people mobilized in different ways? And to really say, okay, we need to channel this energy into these different efforts. And it is about being creative and thinking through. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just sort of one day you decide I'm going to get up and do. The strategy, I think, really was, again, looking at community events where I could be throughout the day. If I needed to take my lunch break to get downtown to an event, or if I needed on weekends to be at a picnic, or if I needed to be at a key dinner, to make sure that I was there. And I talk a little bit in my book about chicken dinners because there are opportunities to be out and present, but also tapping the shoulders of colleagues again to say, can you be my liaison? Can you be my representative? And having people to help canvass on my behalf. It is an extraordinary undertaking to canvass a citywide campaign, the equivalent of a mayor-size race. And so knowing that I needed to be strategic in really the time that I spent in certain areas, others where I needed to reach out more, where there was no presence. In some cases, no one had ever been to ask for their vote.
Wow.
And so knowing how important it was to me to say, making that personal ask and getting out there and being present, really being strategic and that large run.
Well, that I think is really critical, because I know when you have a politician actually show up where you don't usually see them and say, I really want your vote, you're more inclined to give it to that person because they did take the time. Well, stay with us. We are going to be back with Dawn McCoy to talk some more about leadership building blocks and her run for, successfully, the school board in Sacramento and the kinds of skills she needed once she was elected. So we'll be back. Thanks for staying with us.
This moment would not be made possible without the generosity of a caring community. With people who choose to make a difference through the work of ACA, the Annandale Christian Community for Action, you can help by calling ACA to make a donation of usable furniture, dropping off non-perishable food, donating your time, or make a tax-deductible financial donation to ACA. Named one of the best nonprofit charitable organizations in the Washington area, ACA meets the challenge of helping those in need. Make more of these moments possible by donating your reusable furniture, food items, or time by volunteering. For more information, give us a call at 703-256-9513. Or visit us on the web at accacares.org. That's ACCA cares.org. Make each moment count for someone.
This is firstgov.gov, where we're obsessed with getting you government information.
Brand new student loan applications on the site, baby. This calls for a celebration. Where's your uncle?
So in the end, it was either take the astronaut gig or come work here. What can I say? Duty called.
Dude, that's my cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's Sam's cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. Sam's. No.
Just log on or email us and get what you need.
C, change of address form. That's how it's done. D, driver's license renewal.
E, emailing Social Security information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice, we'll allow it. All right, F. What are those?